There comes a moment in life when you look back at the things that once crushed you, and instead of feeling fear, you start to laugh. Not because those problems were small, but because you've grown too big for them. There was a time when you couldn't even breathe under the weight of those challenges. They felt like mountains pressing on your chest, making you question everything about yourself. But now, after fighting through storms you never asked for, you look at those old days and think, that was it. That was the thing that kept me up at night. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a long, uncomfortable road built on discipline, honesty, and the refusal to quit. That spirit is what David Goggins talks about, the mindset that turns pain into fuel. The mindset that makes you rise so high that your past struggles become nothing more than funny memories of who you used to be. We all start at the bottom. Nobody is born unstoppable. The strongest people you know were once broken in ways you can't even imagine. They didn't wake up with superhuman willpower. They built it one brutal day at a time. They had mornings where they couldn't get out of bed, nights where their own thoughts felt like enemies, and long stretches of life where it seemed like nothing they did mattered. But they kept going. That's the difference. When life punched them in the face, they didn't fall backward. They learned to stand still. When people doubted them, they didn't try to prove their worth to anyone. They went inward and sharpened themselves in silence. They turned loneliness into training. They turned rejection into direction. And step by step, they climbed so far above their problems that the view changed completely. Think about the moments that broke you, the heartbreak that left you confused, the betrayal that shook your foundation, the failure that made you question your abilities. At that time, those moments felt unbearable. They felt like the end of your story, but here you are, you survived, you're still standing, and that means something. You didn't escape those challenges by luck. You survived because there was something inside you that refused to give up. You may not have noticed it, but every time you dragged yourself forward, even by 1 inch, you were building a different version of yourself. A tougher version, a wiser version, a version that could handle pain without breaking apart. Rise happens in silence. High places are built with small, invisible steps. The world only sees you when you stand at the top. They don't see you talking to yourself at 3 a.m. telling your mind to keep fighting. They don't see you restarting your life after everyone left. They don't see the sweat, the doubt, the tears, or the internal war. But you know. You felt every second of it. And that's why you deserve the peace that comes when you finally grow past your old limits. One day, something strange happens. A situation pops up that used to terrify you. But this time, it doesn't shake you. It doesn't control you. You feel an unexpected calm, almost like your brain is laughing. You see right through the problem because you've already fought tougher battles. You've already bled for what you want. You've already survived worse pain. And that moment feels like magic. That's when you understand what rising truly means. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming untouchable in your mind. People think strength is loud. They imagine the strongest person is the one who shouts, flexes, and shows off. But real strength is silent. It's the ability to stay calm in chaos. It's the ability to walk away without losing your center. It's the courage to start again when everything collapses. It's choosing discipline when comfort is the easier option. This kind of strength grows when you face your fear instead of running from it. When you stay committed even when you have no motivation. When you stop negotiating with your excuses. When you look at your pain and say, you don't get to control me today. Nobody can hand you this mindset. You have to build it with your own struggle. David Goggins didn't become extraordinary because life was kind to him. He became extraordinary because life was brutal and he refused to be a victim. He understood that running from pain only makes it bigger, but running into pain makes you stronger. He learned that suffering is not the enemy. Avoiding suffering is the real problem. Once you accept discomfort, your entire world changes. The limits you believed were real start to dissolve. The fears you thought were permanent start to shrink. The insecurities you carried for years suddenly lose their power. Every time you push yourself beyond what you believe you can do, your mind gets a little stronger. Every time you complete something you didn't want to do, your mind becomes more disciplined. Every time you calm your emotions instead of reacting, your mind becomes more stable. And before you realize it, your mental foundation becomes unshakable. People start to wonder how you handle so much pressure. They ask how you stay motivated. They ask how you found your confidence, but you know the answer. You earned it in the dark. The beauty of rising is that nobody can take it away from you. Money can disappear, people can leave, opportunities can fade. But once you build a mind that cannot be broken, you win no matter what life throws at you. Your past stops haunting you. Your fears lose their grip, your problems become manageable, and your biggest battles transform into the reason you are strong today. When you reach that point, you look back at your old struggles and laugh, not out of disrespect for your past pain, but out of gratitude, because those moments shaped you. They forged your character. They introduced you to the strongest version of yourself. You rise so high that your old life feels like a different story, A story that doesn't define you anymore but taught you how to fight. There comes a time when you stop reacting to pressure and start responding to it. That shift changes everything. The same situations that once drained your energy now barely scratch the surface. You begin to understand that strength isn't a moment. It's a journey built through countless days of pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. This shift is subtle at first. You don't wake up one morning suddenly transformed. It's more like one day you realize you didn't break down in a situation that used to crush you. You handled the conversation with calmness. You faced the rejection without falling apart. You accepted the setback without letting it define your identity. That's when you start to sense the rise happening inside you. That's when you begin to grasp the power of becoming the kind of person who outgrows their old life. Life doesn't stop throwing challenges your way. You just stop folding under the weight of them. You stop seeing obstacles as personal attacks and start seeing them as tests. You start noticing that each difficulty exposes a weakness in your character, and instead of avoiding it, you strengthen that weak spot. This mindset is what Goggins talks about. You become your own drill instructor. You stop waiting for someone to push you. You push yourself. You stop needing motivation like a morning cup of tea. You operate on commitment. You start getting honest with yourself. The lies you used to tell yourself, like "I'll start tomorrow" or "it's too hard," no longer work on you. You call yourself out. You challenge your mind. You strip away your excuses. And in that process, something incredible happens. You rise. People who rise aren't lucky. They're disciplined. They face the parts of themselves most people avoid. They confront their fears head-on. They sit with their discomfort instead of running from it. They push through the voice in their head that screams for comfort. And once you do that long enough, you start noticing internal changes. Your patience grows, your focus sharpens, your confidence becomes more natural. You stop needing external validation because you validate yourself through the effort you put in every day. You develop a quiet pride that doesn't need to be shown off. You don't need applause. You don't need praise. Your satisfaction comes from knowing you conquered who you were yesterday. The most powerful part of rising is self-awareness. You start seeing your patterns clearly. You recognize when you are slipping. You notice when your mind tries to sabotage you. And instead of letting those habits win, you interrupt them. You catch yourself before you fall back into old cycles. You understand that the battle is never outside you. It has always been inside. Your old problems were never just circumstances. They were reflections of your internal limits. When those limits expand, the problems shrink. And when you grow beyond them, they become too small to bother you. People who watch your journey may not understand what changed. They'll think you became lucky or that life somehow became easier for you. They won't see the lonely nights you spent improving yourself. They won't see you choosing discipline over comfort. They won't see the moments you forced yourself to keep going even when everything felt heavy. Rising is personal. It's intimate. It happens when nobody is watching. But the results speak loudly. Your energy changes. Your decisions become clearer. Your goals become sharper. You no longer tolerate the things that kept you stuck. You no longer allow people to drain your peace. You no longer let fear stop you from pursuing what matters. At some point, you start noticing that the things that used to trigger you no longer touch you. You stop reacting emotionally to small disappointments. You stop losing sleep over people who don't respect you. You stop wasting time on situations you can't control. Your heart becomes steadier. Your mind becomes quieter. This doesn't mean you become cold. It means you become strong. You learn how to protect your peace while still caring deeply. You don't shut down, you level up. You carry yourself differently. You start looking at life with a wider perspective, realizing that half the battles you fought were never worth the energy you gave them. Rising also means taking responsibility. You stop blaming your childhood, your past relationships, or your circumstances. You accept that healing is your job, growth is your job, success is your job. That level of accountability can feel uncomfortable, but it also sets you free. When you stop pointing fingers, you take back your power. When you own your mistakes, you control your transformation. You stop waiting for life to change and start changing yourself. You stop wishing for easier days and start wishing for the strength to handle harder days. That shift in perspective is the heart of the rise. You also learn to embrace solitude. You begin to appreciate your own company. You understand that isolation isn't punishment, it's preparation. The moments you spend alone are the moments that shape you the most. You reflect, you analyze, you recalibrate, you figure out who you are without noise. And once you become comfortable being alone, nobody can break you with loneliness again. You no longer cling to people for validation. You no longer feel desperate for attention. You no longer chase connection out of insecurity. You connect out of choice, not fear. As you rise, your focus changes. You stop thinking about what you lack and start thinking about what you can build. You stop comparing your journey to others and start competing with your old self. You stop thinking about quick results and start thinking about long-term transformation. This is when life begins to shift in your favor. Your habits align with your goals. Your energy aligns with your purpose. Your actions align with the person you want to become. And the universe responds to alignment. The funny thing about rising is that the world around you doesn't change. Your job, your family, your responsibilities, your environment, they all stay the same. What changes is your mind. The meaning you attach to things changes. The way you handle pressure changes. Your threshold for discomfort expands. You no longer panic in adversity. You adjust, you adapt, you push through. Because now you understand something deep. You've already survived harder situations than this. You've already faced bigger storms than this. You're not fragile anymore. You're forged. That's when laughter comes. Not mocking laughter, liberating laughter. A laugh that says, I can't believe this small thing used to scare me. A laugh that reflects how far you've come. A laugh that celebrates the version of yourself you never thought you could become. That laugh is the sound of victory, the sound of evolution. And the rise continues. There comes a phase in your journey where you stop living on emotional autopilot. You notice that your reactions are calmer, your decisions are clearer, and your inner world feels more stable. This shift happens after countless internal battles you fought alone. People around you might assume you simply changed one day. They won't realize how many nights you spent wrestling with doubt, how many mornings you dragged yourself forward, and how many times you forced your mind to rise above the chaos. That slow climb shapes a different version of you, a version that responds instead of panics, a version that chooses purpose over impulse. A version that looks back at old problems with the same feeling you get when remembering a childhood fear. It was real back then, but it doesn't hold power anymore. This stage of growth is not always glamorous. You face long periods where no one applauds your effort. You may feel invisible while putting in the work. You might look around and wonder if anyone sees how hard you're trying. But the truth is, greatness grows quietly. Real growth doesn't need validation. It needs consistency. When you commit to improving yourself daily, even without recognition, you build a foundation that will carry you for the rest of your life. That's what rising truly means. It isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you can overcome the version of you that used to hold you back. Day by day, you learn to master your emotions. You stop letting stress hijack your decisions. You stop allowing fear to direct your next move. You start pausing before reacting. You breathe before speaking. You analyze before jumping to conclusions. This emotional intelligence becomes one of your biggest strengths. People wonder why you appear unbothered by situations that would send others into panic. What they don't realize is that you already lived through moments that nearly destroyed you. After surviving your lowest point, everyday challenges feel small. That inner stability is not accidental. It's earned. As you rise, your goals begin to evolve. You stop chasing temporary comfort and start chasing meaningful progress. You begin to prioritize habits instead of moods. You know that your emotions won't always support you, so you build routines that carry you even on difficult days. You train your mind to show up whether you feel inspired or not. That commitment sharpens your mindset. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop entertaining distractions. You stop feeding your weaknesses. And over time, discipline becomes a natural part of who you are. People often admire the results of someone's growth without recognizing the sacrifice required. To rise, you lose parts of your old identity. You let go of toxic habits. You walk away from unhealthy patterns. You end relationships that drain your spirit. You replace mindless scrolling with learning. You trade comfort for challenge. You choose growth even when it hurts. It's not easy, but it's necessary. Because not everyone can come with you to the heights you're aiming for. Some people fit your past, not your future. And as painful as that truth is, accepting it frees you. One of the most powerful signs of rising is that you stop explaining yourself. You no longer justify your goals. You no longer seek approval for your choices. You no longer argue with people who misunderstand you. You let your actions speak. You let your results speak. You allow your silence to become your strength. Because the more you rise, the more you realize that your energy is too valuable to waste on meaningless debates or convincing others of your worth. You start protecting your space. You start protecting your peace. You start choosing where your focus goes, and that decision alone elevates your entire life. At this stage, your relationship with pain changes. You stop fearing struggle. You stop resenting discomfort. You start seeing challenge as a tool. Every hardship becomes a training session for your mind. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What is this teaching me?" That single shift transforms your entire mindset. You no longer feel helpless. You no longer feel stuck. You start feeling powerful because you understand that every difficult moment is shaping a tougher version of you. Goggins calls this the callus of the mind. The more you push through adversity, the stronger you become mentally. Your resilience deepens, your endurance grows, your capacity expands. And then something remarkable happens. The same tasks that used to overwhelm you become effortless. The situations that once triggered you don't even register. The people who once intimidated you no longer hold any power. Your old fears start to look small. Your old excuses sound childish. Your old struggles feel insignificant. You realize how much you've transformed. It almost feels surreal. You wonder how you ever let certain things break you. You wonder why you doubted yourself for so long. You wonder why you believed you weren't capable. But instead of feeling regret, you feel gratitude. Because without those earlier struggles, you wouldn't have discovered your strength. As you rise, your connection with your future self becomes stronger than your attachment to your past self. You start making decisions that align with the person you are becoming, not the person you once were. You focus on long-term rewards instead of quick fixes. You prioritize health, growth, learning, and consistency over distraction, drama, and instant pleasure. Your mind begins to crave improvement. You start reading more, reflecting more, practicing more, pushing more. You become obsessed with growth, not out of insecurity, but out of purpose. You want to see how far you can go, how much you can achieve, how strong you can become mentally and emotionally. That hunger fuels you, and the world starts treating you differently. Not because people changed, but because your energy did. You carry yourself with a quiet confidence. You speak with clarity. You make decisions with decisiveness. You handle challenges with maturity. You stand firm in your values. People can sense the difference. They feel the strength in your presence, the stability in your tone, the discipline in your choices. This is what rising looks like from the outside, but the real magic is internal. You begin to appreciate the person you see in the mirror. You stop criticizing yourself for where you started. You stop comparing your progress to others. You become proud of your journey. You recognize that every scar, every mistake, every failure played a role in shaping you. You start trusting yourself again. You start believing in your ability to overcome anything. Your relationship with yourself becomes healthier, kinder, and more supportive. That inner shift is priceless. And then comes that beautiful moment we all strive for, the moment you laugh at problems that once terrified you. It's not arrogance, it's not dismissal, it's realization. You've risen so high that your old fears can't reach you anymore. You've grown so much that your past struggles feel like distant memories. That laughter is the sound of liberation, the sound of evolution, the sound of someone who has reclaimed their power. And your rise still isn't finished. There comes a stage in life where your mind feels clearer than ever before. Not because the world has become gentler, but because you have become stronger. The chaos around you might even increase, but your response becomes steadier. You've reached a point where you understand that nothing outside you has the power to break what you've built inside. That's the moment you begin to sense true freedom. Your self-worth no longer depends on circumstances. Your confidence doesn't shake when someone criticizes you. Your peace doesn't disappear when plans fall apart. You handle everything with a calm maturity that surprises even you. This is what rising feels like. Not the loud victory people imagine, but a steady inner power that no one can take from you. You start to view life from a higher perspective. Problems that once blocked your vision now look like small bumps on a long road. You see through situations that used to confuse you. You recognize intentions more clearly. You understand your old emotional triggers and refuse to let them control you again. That growth comes from choosing discomfort when comfort was available. It comes from refusing to quit when giving up seemed easier. It comes from being honest about your own flaws and working on them consistently. These choices reshape you, layer by layer, until you become a version of yourself that your past self wouldn't even recognize. One of the biggest signs of rising is that you develop patience. You stop rushing. You stop forcing outcomes. You learn to trust the process not because you're passive, but because you understand how growth works. You know that discipline plus time equals transformation. You focus on small daily wins instead of waiting for big dramatic changes. You show up for yourself even on days when motivation is nowhere to be found. This steady discipline creates a kind of strength that doesn't disappear when life gets messy. It stays with you. It guides you. And while you rise, something else happens too. You stop taking things personally. You realize that most people act from their own fears, insecurities, and unresolved pain. Their words often have more to do with them than with you. Instead of reacting emotionally, you choose understanding. You set boundaries with clarity instead of anger. You protect your peace without guilt. You say no without fear. You stop explaining your reasoning to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. This emotional maturity saves you from unnecessary suffering and helps you focus your energy where it truly matters. As you continue rising, your definition of success starts to change. It's no longer about money, status, or validation from others. It becomes about self-respect. It becomes about waking up every morning knowing you are living a life aligned with your values. It becomes about taking care of your mind, your body, your purpose, and your relationships. You start valuing consistency over intensity, quality over speed, depth over attention. You build a strong foundation instead of chasing shortcuts. And that foundation will hold you even when life gets unpredictable. You also start reconnecting with your potential. You realize that for years you underestimated yourself. You played small because you thought you weren't ready. You let fear convince you weren't good enough. But now, after everything you've survived, you no longer buy into that narrative. You start dreaming bigger. You start setting goals that used to intimidate you. You start believing that you deserve more. You begin working like someone who knows they're capable. And that shift opens doors that were always meant for you, but you couldn't see them from your old mindset. Then there's the moment when gratitude becomes your anchor. Not the vague kind of gratitude people talk about casually, but a deep appreciation for everything you've lived through. You realize your toughest seasons taught you resilience. Your heartbreaks taught you wisdom. Your failures taught you strength. Your disappointments taught you patience. Your loneliness taught you independence. When gratitude becomes your lens, even your past pain begins to feel meaningful. You no longer regret it, you respect it. You start forgiving yourself too, for the mistakes, for the delays, for the moments you didn't know better, for the times you reacted from fear instead of strength. Forgiveness frees you from the weight you carried for years. It allows you to move forward without dragging the past behind you. And once you forgive yourself, you stop expecting perfection. You allow yourself to be human. You allow yourself to grow at your own pace. You allow yourself to evolve without pressure. This self-compassion becomes one of your greatest tools. At this height, life is still challenging, but you've changed so much that challenges feel different. You don't panic. You don't collapse. You don't spiral into negativity. You analyze, you adapt, you adjust, you endure, you face setbacks with perspective. You face rejection with resilience. You face uncertainty with courage. Every problem becomes another opportunity to test your new strength. And every time you overcome one, you rise even higher. People start noticing something different about you. They can't always pinpoint what changed. They say you look more focused, more grounded, more confident, more at peace. What they're sensing is the internal shift, the transformation that took years to build. The unshakable foundation you worked on day after day. That's the power of rising. It changes not only how you live, but also how you appear to the world. And then comes the most satisfying part of this entire journey. The moment where you look back at your old problems and genuinely laugh. Not because those moments weren't painful, not because they were insignificant, but because you have outgrown them so completely that they no longer define you. You think about the situations that once kept you awake at night and wonder how they ever had such a grip on you. You think about the people who hurt you and realize their power over you is gone. You think about the fears that once controlled your decisions and see how small they were compared to the strength you carry now. That laughter is the symbol of your rise. It is the sound of someone who survived, someone who rebuilt, someone who grew beyond every limitation that once held them back. It is the sound of freedom, the sound of self-respect, the sound of rebirth, and that rise never ends. You keep growing, you keep learning, you keep pushing, you keep evolving. Each new level of life brings new challenges, but you handle them with the confidence of someone who knows exactly what they are made of. You walk forward knowing that nothing in your past can match the strength of your present. You move with steady confidence because you have become the kind of person who doesn't fold under pressure. You laugh at your old problems because you rose above them. And now, you rise toward a future that once felt impossible. Your journey isn't finished, but you've already proven one thing: you are unstoppable.